Is there any justifiable reason why we should eat red meat? Well, start your comments already, because the thing is, I'm going to try to justify why we should be eating red meat. Number one, you get a tremendous amount of protein. If you eat red meat about the size of your palm, about the thickness of your palm, you are getting somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 25 grams of protein. That is a lot. When patients come into my office and they say, I'm tired, I have fatigue, I never have energy, I'll ask them about their diet. And sure enough, it almost always goes like this. Well, I have cereal in the morning and I'm on a diet, so I'm trying to lose weight, so I eat a salad for lunch, and then at dinner time, they'll usually eat something like a small amount of pasta or a packaged meal or something of that nature. These people, when you send them for blood work, they're protein deficient. Number two, iron. Red meat has iron. If you're a woman and you are having a period once a month, every month you're losing blood. Every month you're using iron. If you've ever tried to donate blood and have them test you and they say, I'm sorry, we can't take your blood, you're too low in iron, you are not healthy enough to even donate blood. Now, of course, one can take iron supplements, but why not just eat a piece of red meat? Red meat has zinc, phosphorus, magnesium, selenium. These are nutrients that you can get through other means, but it is so easy to just have red meat. Some people believe that they can change this by buying supplements. It is just my personal belief that I don't think scientists in a lab can make something that's healthier than what comes naturally in our environment. Normal food is probably going to supply better nutrients than any scientist in a lab. B vitamins, in particular B12. Everybody's concerned about B12, but there's quite a bit of vitamins that are found in meat. Now, one can obviously supplement themselves, but why eat certain foods and then have to supplement your diet because you're not getting it in your diet? Red meat supplies, in particular, B12. You very seldom hear of a B12 deficiency in a person who's willing to eat red meat. Number 5, and this is only in regard to grass-fed red meat, whereas corn-fed animals that produce red meat probably don't have this. But did you know that grass-fed animals, when you eat the meat from those animals, there's a tremendous amount of omega-3 fatty acids? In other words, grass-fed animals, their red meat is actually rich in omega-3s. We normally think of omega-3s as fish, of which people don't want to eat fish either because they don't like the taste, or they're afraid of mercury, or they don't want to hurt the fish, or whatever the reason is. It really doesn't matter. But grass-fed meat actually is rich in omega-3 fatty acids. Another reason that maybe we should be eating red meat. Number 6, by eating red meat, it is actually quite easy to lose weight. When you are eating meat and replacing it with other foods like pastas and sugary foods and stuff like that, what ends up happening is you are reducing your chances of type 2 diabetes. When a person eats red meat, it's much easier to maintain a good BMI, protect yourself from diabetes, lower your cholesterol if it's a healthy red meat. Let's talk about another reason, or some other reasons why we should be willing to eat red meat. The first is social. Being someone who's willing to eat red meat is much easier on your social life. When you go to a barbecue on the 4th of July, when we have Thanksgiving, there's always someone who's going to say, I don't eat those foods, and they're going to tell everyone how bad those foods are and how they don't eat the foods. Don't be that person. If you don't want to eat the foods, it's okay. It makes people feel very uncomfortable when you question their eating habits, just as someone would question your eating habits. So if you're willing to eat red meat, even just occasionally, it's much easier on your social life. I'm going to give you a personal example of this. in terms of social. So I have some children, and when you have children and your children start going to schools, they make friends. This is like 20 years ago. They make friends with other little kids. And so, being who we are, we thought we would make friends with their parents. And so we invited this couple over for dinner one night. And my wife is a fantastic cook. She's like a mix between Giada and Rachel Ray and like a Martha Stewart. So the thing is that my wife was like, gee, what are some foods that are kind of neutral so that we can, make everybody happy? So what my wife decided to do was, because the kids were coming over and they were going to play, that she would make a very simple Italian dish. So she had spaghetti, and she had a meat sauce and a marinara sauce, and there was some salad. And we had some different drinks and so forth. Well, what happened was the couple that came over, evidently, when the food was served on the table, there became an issue. First was, they refused to eat the food. The food had meat products on it. So there was a marinara sauce. So my wife offered to say, hey, you can put the marinara sauce on. Well, they didn't want to eat the pasta either, as well as for some reason, I remember, it was Caesar salad. Caesar dressing has fish in it. So the thing is that think of the uncomfortable feeling. And actually, I look back and I laugh about it because it was so uncomfortable. You have to imagine that this couple is sitting at our table just like this with their hands crossed, and they're just staring at us, and I don't even remember what the conversation was like, but my wife and I are just eating, wondering, how do you deal with this? How are we supposed to act? We didn't know. We were a young couple and we were just inviting people over to be friends. Now, when I was a child, and I don't know if this is still taught, but when I was a child and we were supposed to go to some host's house, my parents told me, you eat what's on the plate, you eat everything, you say thank you, and if you don't like the food, you eat it anyway. So if you're not into meat, but you can stomach it, you eat the food at the party and you don't make an issue out of it. So without explaining further, the reality was we never became good friends with these people. We couldn't. It was too uncomfortable because they wouldn't eat any of my wife's cooking. They just sat there, and we honestly just weren't sure what to do. So if you eat red meat, it just makes things easier socially. Another reason why we should eat red meat: it tastes good. It's fun. Sometimes it just tastes good. You know, red meat to me is a lot like coffee. It's probably not anything we should be eating, but for the most part, sometimes you like it. And so I'm not advocating that you eat red meat 3 to 5 times a day, 7 days a week, but sometimes it just tastes good. We should be enjoying life, I hope. Food is not something that is just for nourishment. Now, it should be, but it's not just for nourishment. Sometimes you just want to taste something that's good. Now, this is number 9, the history of hate towards food. Remember when carrots and bananas, you couldn't get a person to eat a carrot and you couldn't get a person to eat bananas. Why? Because those were foods that were considered on the high glycemic index. So there was a time when people would refuse to eat bananas and refuse to eat carrots. Well, that eventually died off. And remember gluten? Gluten is still popular, I assume today, although there's other diets that have come across. But remember gluten? People used to go to In-N-Out Burger and would order the hamburgers animal style. And the reason why was because everybody was against bread. You couldn't even give bread away. So the thing is that there was a time when bread was the bad guy. Then all carbs were bad. And so Italian restaurants were just dying because Italian restaurants, at least around here, pastas, pizzas, salads, everything is carbs. So the thing is that they just they couldn't sell. Everybody was eating meat and stuff like that. So now meat is the bad guy. About a year ago at In-N-Out Burger, there were many complaints that the public was trying to force a private company, In-N-Out Burger, to serve them vegetarian meat in their hamburgers. And nothing ever happened of this. In-N-Out Burger, I think, just kind of ignored it. But the thing is that if you don't want a hamburger, don't go to In-N-Out. That's all that's on their menu. You know, if you go to Italy, you don't ask for French food. This is the 10th reason for the justification of meat. The first is that we are designed to eat meat. As much as people don't like to see this, but genetically, our teeth, our front teeth, are meant to bite things. We have these eye teeth, these pointer teeth, and those are things to tear flesh off of other animals. Then on the back we have our molars, which are there to grind food. And to grind what? Vegetables and fruits and things of that nature. So actually we're designed to eat meat, but we're also designed to eat other foods as well, such as vegetables and fruits. So I always tell patients this. When patients ask, should I eat meat? What's the deal with meat? All these things. They ask me these questions because they really want to know. I always make a little bit of a joke about it by telling them a story. And it's the story that goes like this. Imagine Martians came down and they wanted to take 3 different animals up to Mars and put them in a zoo to display to other Martians. Well, you can't just take the animals and put them in a cage. They would die. So let's do a story about a giraffe, an Alaskan bear, and a human. So the Martians come down and they take an Alaskan bear, a giraffe, and a human, and they put them up into Mars, and they're going to put them in a zoo. Well, what would they do to keep that animal healthy? Well, looking at the giraffe, they would have to look at what does a giraffe do in its natural environment? How can we make the zoo, or the cage, act like its natural environment, and what are we supposed to feed it? Well, giraffes only have back molars. They grind food. So what ends up happening is a giraffe, if you want to keep it healthy, you're going to need to feed it plants, leaves. That's what a giraffe normally eats in its natural environment. Now, if they take a bear and they put it up into Mars and they want to put it in a cage or put it into its natural environment, they have to ask, what is the natural environment of an Alaskan bear? Well, it's colder than where you would put the giraffe, but what does an Alaskan bear eat? Salmon. If you want the Alaskan bear to eat salmon, you're going to need to feed it salmon. You can't feed the Alaskan bear plants, and you can't feed the giraffe salmon. As much as the Martian's opinion about what constitutes good health, you have to feed the animal what it needs in its natural environment. So now we have a human. What the heck does a human do in its natural environment? The Martians wouldn't be able to figure it out. They'd probably put us at a desk in front of a computer eating prepackaged foods. What does a human eat in a human natural environment? Well, if you look at its teeth structure and you look at the digestive enzymes that we have digestive enzymes to digest protein. We have the teeth to tear flesh. We also have the molars to grind food together, such as vegetables and fruit. So, Martians would have to feed humans what comes naturally to our genetics. And that's a good way to explain to people exactly, are we supposed to be eating meat? The last concept is, why is this such an issue? This is such an issue because we think we can live forever. All of us are going to die no matter what we eat. However, our diet plays a major role in how we feel during the time that we're alive, and there's many diseases that are a result of the food choices that we make. We can obviously make better choices, but eating red meat is a choice. It doesn't have to be you're either a meat eater or not a meat eater. You can be both. The majority of your food can come from other sources, but red meat can be enjoyed occasionally. Now, there are healthier choices of red meat, and there are bad choices. A hot dog, a piece of meat from a corn-fed animal that's been processed and injected with hormones and steroids is probably your not best of choice for red meat. Grass-fed animals that produce red meat are obviously a healthier choice of red meat. So give me your comments, bring them on. Give me your best shot. Tell me what your opinion is. Leave them in the comment section below. I look forward to reading them.